Good evening. So, y'all were stuck with Father Jack last week, unfortunately. And one of the things about him, being a military chaplain is he's got two things that he has to do. One is that he gets his hair cut like every 3 days. Sorry, I almost broke the joke. And the other is he goes to the gym a lot because he wants to be able to run around with the Marines and, scream and shout and more power to you, bud. So he's like, hey, do you still have that gym membership? I said, yeah, I think so. I'll go to he said, let's go do some PT. So Father Michael acts like he goes to the gym all the time. And he's like, yeah, let's go to the gym. And I was like, okay. So we go, and I got on the treadmill, and I was walking. Father Michael's next to me, and he's running, but he's got it on the flat thing. And so I reached over and I pressed 15 for the incline. See what would happen. And then the trainer that I used to go to, he sees me and he's like, hey, you're back. I was like, yeah, not really. I'm just, So the other days that he went for his PT, he went with Father Michael. And there you go. It was interesting, though, because he said, this is a really busy gym. Look at all these cars in the parking lot. And he said, I wonder what it looks like on Sunday. And I do wonder what it looks like on Sunday. I've never been there on Sunday, but I bet it's pretty busy because most gyms on Sundays are super busy because people like to go to the church of the body, and they like to focus on, worldly things. So the first reading that we hear from Chronicles, Israel is in exile, right? They've been conquered by Babylon, and they've been sent off to Babylon. And there they are. The temple's been destroyed. Jerusalem's been destroyed. And they're living in exile. And because they're living in exile and they can't do the things that they're supposed to do, they can't go to the temple and offer sacrifice. They can't fulfill the prescripts of the law. They've decided, well, if we can't do the good stuff that we're supposed to do, let's just do all the bad stuff that we can do. And so it says that they added infidelity to infidelity, practicing all of the abominations of the nation and polluting the Lord's temple, which he had consecrated in Jerusalem. And so they're just doing all this stuff. They're trying to live their lives as contrary as they can to what God has called them to do. And the prophets are sent. The prophets come and they say, hey, come back to Israel. Come back to Jerusalem. Come back so that the temple may be rebuilt, so that you may come and offer sacrifice. So much so that God even predisposes the heart of Cyrus, the king of Persia, so that when the prophet comes to him and says, let these people go back to Jerusalem, he says, hey, Israel, go back to Jerusalem and offer sacrifice in your temple. But the people hear and they think, no, silly prophets, we're so bad. We're so far from doing the will of God. We've been pushed so far from the roots of our faith, we barely practice our faith. And we've embraced all the things of the world, right? We look to you pagans here in Persia, and we see you doing all your pagan stuff. I don't know what pagans do. They probably kill people because that's their version of worship. And they, I guess Persia, from the movie 300, you had Xerxes. He was like gold and walked around on that moving platform, and there were elephants and stuff. So whatever it was that they were doing in Persia, they were living it up as the Persians did. Probably making rugs, because that was a good dad joke, wasn't it? Yeah. And as the prophets are calling them to repentance, they're hearing and they're saying, okay, yeah, we hear you, God, but we just don't think we can do it right. We don't think we can live our faith anymore because the way that we used to do it, we've forgotten that. And now we live in a different place, in a different time. I don't think we can go back to what we were doing. And I think that probably is something that all of us can relate to. Because we look around the world and we see all of the allurements and all of the seductions of the world. And we think, how can we add infidelity to infidelity? For me, the word, I know I'm always harping on sports and stuff, and you guys, maybe it's just because I'm bad at sports, so that's why I don't want anybody else to play. I'd get upset if a fifth grader beat me in basketball. But a few months ago, I was over at St. Peter Chanel, and there they've got Blessed Trinity High School as well. And I noticed there was this advertisement and a little sign out like on one of the fields advertising girls flag football on Sunday morning. It's like, okay, so here we are. Our Catholic schools are offering flag football for girls. I don't know why we need to do that. And on a Sunday morning. And meanwhile, I'm trying to sit here and say, like, hey, let's keep Sunday for God. Let's maybe not worship sports. Let's maybe not think that we have to put our kids in sports at the earliest of ages so that, they can grow up and be awesome. Let's apparently now put our girls in football on a Sunday morning. And I'm thinking to myself, and I look in St. Pius, my alma mater, same thing. They've got the girls flag football on Sunday mornings. And I'm like, why do we need kindergarten girls playing flag football on Sunday? Why can't we go to church? I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I think they're crazy. But we look and we have all sorts of different idols in our world, right? Whether it's sports, whether it's money, whether it's the pursuit of our career. If I can just get promoted one more time, right, then I'll be happy. If I can just get this next great thing, then I'll be happy, right? If I can just get the newest model year of that car that I like. If I can just make this achievement, if I can do something in this world, then I'll be happy. Except I won't, because I'll want more. I'll go out and I'll say, look, I did this one great thing, and now I want to do something even greater. Whereas if we strive to live our faith, we strive to live out the gospel, if we strive to do the will of God, that's challenging enough in and of itself. But if we strive to do those things, then we're going to find joy. We're going to find joy in the difficulty. We're going to find joy in the hardship. We're going to find joy in the sacrifice. That doesn't make any sense because the world says, no, hardship and difficulty and sacrifice, those things we don't want those. Maybe just for a little bit, but then you move on to something better. But as Christians, we're called to embrace suffering. We're called to embrace sacrifice. We're called to embrace hardship. We're called to look and say, wow, the times are really messed up. We're called to look around and say, yeah, all the stuff that we do now, the infidelities, added to infidelities, all the abominations of the nation, we don't even have to look to other nations to see their abominations. We can just look at our own nation's abominations, right? Just the absolute scourge on families, the just utter rejection of the sanctity of human life. I think we can just look and think, yeah, there's just all these things. And we desensitized ourselves. We've desensitized ourselves to the infidelities, and we look and we're like, well, it's not that bad, right? And it's not like the worst thing in the world, right? But God calls us, and he says, come back to me. Come back to my temple. Come back and worship before me. The church in the United States is in this period of Eucharistic revival, and I'm not sure what the fruits of it are going to be. I don't know, how successful we're going to be, because in order to really get back to the heart of what is the Eucharist, who is the Eucharist, Jesus, to really understand the source and summit of our faith, we need to move aside from distractions. We need to set aside all the things of the world that compete, that try to overshadow God himself. All of those different things that prevent us from desiring to do his will. We're in this time of Lent. Lent, of course, is a time of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. It's a time of penance. It's a time in which we're reminded of our sinfulness. It's a time in which we do penance and atonement and make reparation for our shortcomings. But it's just this small period of time. And then we enter into Easter, and we rejoice at Easter. We rejoice at the resurrection. And today the church gives us this little day in the middle of Lent, Laetare Sunday. I see many of you are wearing your Laetare colors. Good for you. Yes, it's rose, Joseph. It's not pink. Don't make me tell the corny joke again. You're curious, aren't you? What my corny joke is. I told it in Advent, I think. It's not pink, it's rose, because Jesus didn't pink from the dead. He rose from the dead. I'll stick with my dad jokes, okay. But this day, this Laetare, which means to rejoice, it's a little reminder to us in the midst of this penitential time that we are called to rejoice in the goodness of God, that we are called to rejoice that he is merciful. We are called to rejoice that, as St. Paul tells us in the letter to the Ephesians, for by grace you have been saved through faith. It's not that we look and we say, gosh, Lord, my life is just such a mess. All the things that I'm supposed to be doing, I don't do. All the things that I ought not do, I do. Everything is misordered and mismanaged. My priorities are all out of line. God, if only I could just get my act together, then I could be faithful. But we're reminded, God comes to us with his grace. He is the one who desires to get our act together for us. Yes, we cooperate. Yes, we collaborate. But we have to first and foremost trust in the grace of God. That God desires to heal me because he loves me. Because he loves me, he desires to make me new. He comes to me and he sees me as broken, but that's not the end product. Through baptism, he claims us as a member of his body. Through our life in the church, through the sacraments, he nourishes us with grace. He gives us grace so that indeed we may be able to do his will. Oftentimes people think, I'm not like a great Catholic, there's the people that go to church all the time. I go to Mass most Sundays, but I just kind of sit there and wait for it to be over, and then I don't really do anything else during the week. And I'm not really striving to be a saint here. Well, that's sad, when I hear people say that. They come to Mass and they're like, "Oh, it's not like I'm going to be a saint." I'm like, well, okay, the alternative of not being a saint is being in hell. So we should all strive to be saints. Yeah, but you know what I mean. I'm just I'm not as committed as some people are. We don't need to be as committed as everybody. We just need to allow the Lord to work in our lives. We need to allow space for the Lord that he can come into our lives and that he can commit himself to us. And we can acknowledge that and we can say, oh, wow, you really do love me. You love me with everything that's broken. You love me with everything that's bad, and you want to bind me up, and you want to heal me, and you want to give me newness of life. You want to restore me. You want to fix me. You want to make me holy. You want to make me into a saint. Maybe I didn't always want that. Maybe I wasn't aware that that's what God was doing. But indeed, that's what he desires. We live in a time and a place of darkness, right? There's darkness all around us, and there always has been. It's nothing unique to right now. There's just different versions of it. But Jesus comes into the world. He crashes into the darkness with his light. Light that purifies, light that restores, light that gives sight to the blind, light that helps us to see his will. It's easy to say, I'd rather remain in darkness. I'd rather remain in ignorance. I'd rather remain where I was. But that's the thing about light, is once it's there, once you see it, that darkness has been banished. That darkness is no more. But only the light which Christ has given to us. And so in our own lives, what are the areas of darkness that need light shed upon them? During this time of Lent, how can we really strive and focus to allow the Lord to pour his grace upon us, to assist us in overcoming our shortcomings? How can we, wherever we are, whether we were dragged here tonight, whether we love coming to Mass, whether we're just kind of like, nah, whatever. May we allow the Lord to enter into our lives in a profound and unique and new way in this time of Lent, so that indeed we may hear his voice, that he is calling us back to himself. He is calling us back to worship. He is calling us back to this place of the temple in Jerusalem, just as he called the Israelites thousands of years ago. He calls to us and he says, I love you. Please follow me. Please do my will. Please let me help you to love me. And in doing so, we can love others. And so as we continue with this time of Lent, let us redouble our efforts. Perhaps if we've fallen in doing our Lenten penances, if we've grown lax, let us recommit ourselves. Let us say, Lord, I know that I can't do it without you, but with your grace, I trust in you. And as we continue with this Holy Mass, we ask that the Lord may shower that grace upon us so that indeed we may allow him to work in transforming us into saints.